Breaking news here on HQ. Melvin Gordon has found himself a home, and it is in the Mile High City with the Denver Broncos. Broncos and Gordon agreeing to a 2-year contract. That takes him off the free agent market. There were some questions as to where he would go after Todd Gurley signed in Atlanta. Some thoughts maybe he might end up in Miami, but it will be in Denver. Over the course of his last 2 seasons, here are his statistics. The numbers, not that much different. Bit of a decline last year over 2018, but still Gordon a very serviceable running back. And he now joins a team that has Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman also in the backfield. Jamie Eisenberg, our fantasy expert, and Pete Prisco now joining me to talk about this. Jamie, your initial reaction to Gordon signing with the Broncos?
I don't love it. It's a good move by Denver to get a quality back that's in the same division, coming from the Chargers that'll help Phillip Lindsay. But fantasy-wise, it stinks, because Lindsay was a very good fantasy option the last 2 seasons. And for what it's worth, I always thought that Royce Freeman had a chance to break through. That clearly is not going to happen with Melvin Gordon now on the roster. You wonder if they're going to try and maybe trade Royce Freeman. Clearly going to move on from him as a featured part of this offense. But fantasy-wise, this stinks. Whenever you get 2 guys that are capable of doing what what Lindsay and Gordon have done the last couple of years when they've been on the field, now they're going to sort of eat away at each other. But Gordon is the better of the 2. Based on this signing, it's very clear that they're going to feature him more so than they are Phillip Lindsay.
All that talk about Royce Freeman never materialized. Every time I went there, this is the year for Royce Freeman. It never worked out that way. And this is clearly taking his carries because they're going to give the ball to Lindsay still. My concern with Melvin Gordon is he fumbles a lot. That's a concern. But also, I feel bad for him. He cost himself a boatload of money. All he had to do last year was take the 3-year deal for $10 million a year. This one's a 2-year deal for $8 million. And if you really look at the structure of it, it's probably a 1-year deal they can get out of after this year. So the running back position has been devalued. These guys are not going to get the mega contracts anymore. And he cost himself about, roughly $10 million, $10 to $12 million by not taking that deal last year with the Chargers.
The weird thing about all this is, where's Tampa Bay? They watched Todd Gurley go to Atlanta. They watched Melvin Gordon now go to Denver. Are they going to go young, or is it really going to be Ronald Jones?
They love Ronald Jones.
I know that Bruce Arians has told you that time and time again, but the production last year just did not magnify what the love is. Can he pass protect for a 43-year-old quarterback? That's the big question. I still think they're going to have to add somebody, and the thought all along the last 2 years was bring in a veteran guy, whether it was going to be maybe try and trade for somebody or try and sign somebody this offseason. The 2 big names now are clearly off the list, off the market, with Gordon now going to Denver and, again, Gurley to Atlanta. So Ronald Jones' fantasy value stock is on the rise.
Yeah, his stock is up, and they're also going to draft a guy. Run him into the ground, get another one. I think they'll draft a guy, not early, but, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, somewhere in there, they'll get a running back.
But if they're talking about maybe moving Phillip Lindsay, maybe that's the guy that maybe Tampa...
No, they're going to move Royce Freeman.
Royce Freeman.
Yeah, they like Lindsay. There was some talk, Pete, about, Lindsay getting a contract extension this offseason. I don't think that this is going to happen now, at least not a significant one, which is a shame because for what this kid has done, undrafted rookie free agent, should have been at the Combine. It was a shame that he wasn't invited to the Combine. The great rookie season, then he breaks his wrist at the end of the season, or the wrist ligament damage that he had at the end of the season. Came back and played very well last year, too. Not to the same heights, but played very well for them. I don't understand this move. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you're the Broncos to sort of go invest, capital in this position for a veteran running back, because this feels like a win-now type of move, and I don't think that Denver's ready to win now.
Denver's pretty good. I think Denver's going to be better than people think. And you want
not the best team in the division.
No, clearly not the best team in the division.
Obviously.
But they might be the 2nd best team in the division. They have a chance.
Which
That's
they
not a
were
stretch.
last season.
No.
Which they were last season.
It's not a stretch. It's a great move for Drew Lock.
It's to get a running back who's been around the league. The offensive line is going to be better. I think you add a guy like Ruggs maybe in the draft to get some speed outside to go with Sutton. And then emergence of Noah Fant at tight end. I think.
But to spend money at this position,
I wouldn't spend.
Right.
That's the negative. He's a good back. Would I have spent the money? Absolutely not.
So what's the attraction of bringing in Gordon over just sticking with Lindsay then, Jamie? If you don't like this move, what's the attraction of bringing in?
I think it's what we were just talking about, is you're giving a veteran presence to a quarterback that's young, an offense that's still trying to improve. Like Pete said, they're going to have to add somebody else to play opposite Sutton and Fant. This is still a very young group that they're going to have, even with the rookie wide receiver that they add there. So you're getting security in the backfield of 2 guys that you could feel comfortable with handing the ball off, and they're both very good pass catchers. Lindsay has shown that. Melvin Gordon has definitely shown that. And so you're helping Drew Lock. But again, it's just a weird position to invest money in. It's not a lot of money, $16 million over 2 seasons. What was it, 13.5 guaranteed money?
Right.
You know, so it's not a ton of money, but it's more than you would expect a team like this to spend. This is a Tampa Bay spending type of money because of what their roster is. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So Lindsey, Freeman, Gordon, Lindsey, I don't know if that significantly improves the Broncos' chances of making the playoffs.
It also tells you a lot about Lindsey, because they could have extended him and given him this money, and they didn't. They chose to bring in Melvin Gordon.
He's got to be pissed.
Yep.
So in terms of how they structure their offense, do you see Lindsey maybe moving more into that Austin Eckler role like Gordon had with him in Los Angeles? Because he's staying within the division.
Yeah, I mean, it's different offenses, and, you know, the thing that made Austin Eckler into that role was mostly Phillip Rivers and his dump-off, you know, not wanting to take hits and not being very mobile. Drew Lock is obviously more mobile than Phillip Rivers. Lindsey's not the same type of pass catcher as Austin Eckler, but he's still going to get touches. I mean, this is not the same scenario of, and I know what you're getting at, Jeremy, of where Gordon and Eckler work very well together, and as we saw at times last year, can both be starting fantasy options. We're going to have to see that play out. So I've already adjusted my rankings. Gordon is still a top 20 running back because I do think he's the better of the 2 Broncos guys. Lindsey was a top 15 guy for me before this signing. Now he's outside the top 24. So he goes from a starting fantasy running back to more of a flex. But I'm still going to draft Phillip Lindsey. I just want to see how this is all going to play out. Hopefully get an offseason to see it.
This is another in the trend of you're not going to have 1 anymore. You're going to have 2 and sometimes even 3 running backs. That's what's going to start. I mean, even there are few and far between where you can say he's the guy, he's the guy, he's the guy, he's going to get all those.
They're more than you think, though, Pete. You know, especially as we're starting to see these backfields shake out. You know, there was some thought about maybe Melvin Gordon going to Buffalo. What do they have behind Devin Singletary right now? Nothing. He looks like legit. Josh Jacobs looks legit. Miles Sanders, they haven't had anybody.
But I think
looks
those guys
legit.
would draft young backs and get them in there and get them working. I just think the days of, you know, Derrick Henry's one of the last of the Moe getting all those carries. I don't think that's.
So what you're talking, a 400 touch guy, a 350 touch guy, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
But 250 to 300 touches, there are a few of those guys still around, and that's what makes for a good fantasy option.
Yeah.
Is this a situation where Gordon, I mean, he gets into a situation where he's with Lindsey, guys who can both be RB1, so you put him at, what, RB1.5 and RB1? How do you structure it in this way in terms of how do you balance those carries? Or do you even worry about that load management with a guy like Gordon who has an injury history and who does have some miles on him?
No, you're paying him, you're running him. I think they'll both get carries and they'll both get touches, and I think they'll probably see a split. I don't think it's going to be significantly one way or the other. I think you'll see a split carries, but I think Gordon will be the starter.
Right, and you look at now the new offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur. And so where did he come from? He came from the Giants, where it was Saquon Barkley. You know, you go to his previous stop in Minnesota where they tried to use one guy. So I think this speaks to Melvin Gordon being the lead guy, and then Phillip Lindsey will certainly get more than what a traditional second guy is. I know you're saying teams moving toward committees, but this isn't going to be Gordon's not going to be Derrick Henry, but he's not going to be in a 50-50 split. I think it's probably 60-40, maybe 70-30 if it's at best case scenario for Gordon. But the money, you know, it's funny because, like, you see all these big spending teams that are throwing money around at a variety of positions, like Byron Jones, for example, at the Cowboys. This is a high-price deal for a running back these days. And so it speaks to we're bringing Melvin Gordon in to be our guy. And Phillip Lindsey's is going to have to be understanding that he's the second guy, which is unfortunate.
Here's the question. Is he that much better than Phillip Lindsey, or is he even better than Phillip Lindsey?
I don't know.
That's what I mean. That's why it makes no sense.
Based on what we saw last year, the answer is no.
No.
So in terms of the big picture of the AFC West, obviously the Chiefs are the class of that division, the class of the AFC. But with this young Denver team, thinking big picture, what does this move mean for them moving forward?
I like the Broncos. I think the Broncos are an ascending team. I really do. I think they're a team to keep an eye on. We've added the extra playoff spot. They could be the extra playoff team. I love the way they're made up on defense. I think they can still rush the passer. Don't forget, Chubb's going to come back. When you have Von Miller and Chubb, that's always something to keep an eye on in terms of building things. And then offensively, I think Drew Lock, I mean, he's got to show that he's the long-term answer, because when you go in there and you do it for a little spurt at the end of a season, it's entirely different going into a season and being the starting quarterback. I believe in him. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. I like the gunslinger mentality. Are they the Chiefs? Absolutely not. Are they the second-best team in the division? Depending on what the Chargers do,
not according to these odds, they're not.
I'll tell you, I love what the Chargers offseason has done. You know, bringing in Trey Turner, adding to the secondary, with Chris Harris. That's the best secondary in football right now with what those guys have back there. You talk about pass rush, you can make a case that the Chargers might be better than the Broncos with what they have with Bosa and Ingram. And then you look at what the quarterback position is right now. Yes, I know you say Drew Lock has a chance to. Is he better than Tyrod Taylor right now?
Yes.
Maybe. I'm not going to say definitively yes. But and I understand why. But what the Chargers do next is going to be the telling factor. Is it Jordan Love? Is it Justin Herbert?
Okay, but if he starts, if as is right now,
Drew Lock has a handful of starts under his belt.
Right.
So it's not like he's that much better than the quarterback.
But you have an idea of what he is.
Roster-wise, right now, which roster would you take?
I'd probably take the Chargers roster.
And that's the thing.
But that quarterback skews that in a big way for me. I think, and I do believe in Drew Lock. So I think the Broncos will be better than the Chargers.
And I understand. And you can look, based on the odds, the Raiders are the better team.
Right.
Of the three that we're talking about here.
They're big believers in Derek Carr. Those odds make.
Well, they have their quarterback in place, and this is a defense in the Raiders that is building in the right direction. It has very nice offensive pieces on the interior. What I mean by that is nobody really on the outside that scares you yet. What are they going to do, though, to add to that? Because Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, for the most part, Tyrell Williams was a disappointment. Those three guys, from a skill position standpoint, aren't better than what they have in the Chargers, and certainly aren't better than what they have in Denver.
Broncos and Raiders both need deep speed. Both of them.
One of the things we were talking about before we came on, Pete, was which teams were in the market for a running back when it came to the draft. So now that the Broncos have their running back, what does this do for their draft?
Well, I think they're going to probably look at the defensive line. You have to almost.
Receiver.
And wide receiver. So if Ruggs to me is the guy. If I'm the Broncos and I get
But
Ruggs,
everybody wants Ruggs.
but there's two other guys in this draft too that are elite receivers in Judy and Lamb. I prefer Judy over all of them. I'd probably take Ruggs second. I think Ruggs is more than just a guy who can run. I think he's a polished receiver even at his age. So I think for me it's Judy, and then Ruggs, and then probably Lamb.
And there's some people that would take Lamb over everybody, So
yeah.
that's the tipping point at that position. It's those three guys right now. Yep. But if they don't take a receiver in the first round, we've talked about this time and time again. The class is so deep that maybe Rieger in round 2, another guy who can run is somebody that they could look at also.
Another one that might be there in round 2, and then you could take a defensive lineman earlier in the draft.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.